Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the AGM. My name is Matt Smith. I am the outgoing president. I just want to take a moment to recognize that we're on the traditional and unceded territory of the Kahanawake. And thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm going to start by introducing to you the newly elected executive committee of the board of directors of the Folk Alliance International. Our new at-large member is Ellen Stanley. Our new and old treasurer is Alka Sharma. Our new and old secretary, Tina McLeod. I don't mean old by their old people, I just mean they already were. Don't be so sensitive. Our new vice president is Matt Sever. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome our new president, Lisa Schwartz.
Wow, there's no height difference here, is there? Thanks, Matt. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Je m'appelle Lisa Schwartz et je suis très fière d'être votre nouvelle présidente de conseil. My name is Lisa Schwartz, and I'm very proud to be your new board president. That's the end of my 6 years of French. I would like to officially call this AGM to order. It is so great to see so many of you. Show of hands, who got here by dog sled? Yeah? Very impressive that we were able to schedule this Folk Alliance conference concurrent with Snowmageddon. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see so many of you here. This is an incredible facility. And I just can't say enough about Angus and Jen and the staff and what they've done to, really raise the bar. It does seem quite apropos to be meeting in the Joni Mitchell Room, named for the brilliant Canadian artist who is quite possibly the living example of the word folk. Her music incorporated many genres, including pop, rock, jazz, highly complex tuning. It was uniquely Joni. And as we seem to struggle to define folk music in 2019, I find myself turning to that great folk singer, Louis Armstrong. And I love his definition. He said, all music is folk music, because I ain't never heard a horse sing a song. What I have come to know is that music is the universal language, and it's the connective tissue in our world, and it provides a medium to communicate with one another, not just verbally, but emotionally. In 1989, our forefathers and our foremothers gathered at Camp Hess Kramer in Malibu, California, with a shared passion and a shared vision to advocate for the folk music community through the creation of this organization. We are indebted to those vanguards who, through their imagination and determination, we are here today. Are any of our founding members in the audience? Could you stand up or show hands? Let's say thank you. A couple of years back, Angus had the brilliant idea to hold our board retreat at Camp Hess Kramer, and we're able to get a real sense of the magic of that place. Even though the Woolsey fire destroyed that camp, the indomitable spirit of that facility lives on, and I'm really happy to say that the camp will continue with sessions at Cal State University, Channel Island. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge our outgoing directors and to thank them for their amazing service. Sam Lee, Greg Tarrington, Mary Sue Toohey, and past President Michelle Conceição. I'd also like to welcome our newest directors who were either recently elected or appointed to our board. Chloe Goodyear, Gerald Torres, Reed Wick, Sarah Leishman, and Meg Tarquinio. I also want to take a moment to introduce you to the rest of your board. I think you'll see some familiar faces here, and these are folks that I am so proud to serve with. Immediate past president Matt Smith. Alka Sharma. Dina McLeod. Matt Sever. Lynn Sungari. Lou DeMarco. Dom Flemons, nominated for a Grammy and looking fab on the red carpet with his gorgeous wife. Gil Gaston. Joan Kornblith. Michael Kornfeld. Gary Picosa. Amy Reitner-Jacobs. Ellen Stanley, Denise Stiff, and Laura Thomas. I think I got them all. I'd like to thank our regional leaders. NERFA, Michael Kornfeld. SWERFA, Dallas Allen. SURFA, Don Baker, with Artmenius as the executive director. Far West, Janet Dukes. And Farms, Smitty Smith, with Charlie Mossbrook leaning in as vice president while Smitty's in China. I'd also like to thank any past directors. Would you please raise your hands or stand up? Tim McFadden here, come on. Lots of thank yous this morning. I also want to thank our generous sponsors and donors for their support. Now I'd like to introduce you to our treasurer, Alka Sharma, who will continue the mission of our longstanding treasurer, Donald Davidoff, and show us why numbers are sexy. Alka.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start by thanking FAI's Executive Director, Angus Finnan, and our Operations Director, Jennifer Rowe, and of course, our committee members, Donald Davidoff, Lou DeMarco, and Michael Kornfeld, who sit on the Finance Committee with me. I'm very pleased to report to the membership that our finances are strong, and through the careful diligence of our Executive Director and the general oversight and the financial prudence of our board, we had just over $550,000 in liquid assets at the end of 2018, which does not include another almost $42,000 in accounts receivable and prepaid expenses against other current liabilities of just under $136,000. We again received an unqualified audit report for our last fiscal year, which means there were no qualifications or reservations to the audit. We continue to be debt-free. That represents the commitment to the financial prudence of this board and Angus, who have lived up to as stewards of our mission and you, the members' money. These accomplishments position us very well to continue to prosper. This year's conference here in Montreal is anticipated to top our conference from last year from both mission and financial perspectives. Not an easy task given how great last year was in Kansas City. We are in a secure position as we take risks in expanding our mission, outreach, and programming, as well as to prepare for the 2020 conference in New Orleans. As we look forward to the rest of 2019, we expect financial conditions to be stable, though it's impossible to predict exactly what shocks might come to the economy. Your board and staff continue to focus on what is necessary to protect and even improve our financial condition. So looking forward to a great rest of the conference and a great year. Thank you.
you, Alka. And now I'd like to ask Angus Finnan to come and deliver his executive director's report. Special round of applause for this amazing man who has been such an incredible force in the growth of Folkline.
Thank you all. Thanks for being here and taking the time to come and hear some of the updates from the board and from our finances. And it's my great pleasure to give you a look back on the past year. This is the annual general meeting of the membership of Folk Alliance International. So we are reporting at this time on the activities of our last fiscal year, which ended June 1st. You'll find each of you, sorry, I need my little clicker. It's still called a clicker, right? It's my granddad's term. There we are. So you'll find on the tables, and hopefully you received emails earlier this fall and print copies if requested of the annual report. This is the third year in a row that we've published an annual report of this nature, ultimately to give you, our full membership, the public and our partners, a dynamic view of the organization beyond the conference that reflects the charitable nature of our year-round work as it relates to education, advocacy, outreach, and all of our activities, both from the Kansas City office, but also at events nationally and internationally, and obviously the content of the conference itself. So last year was the celebration of our 30th anniversary. Technically, that 30th anniversary year ended yesterday with the beginning of our 31st annual conference. But we did take considerable time last year to celebrate the origins of the conference itself, the organization, and the growth from this 1989 photo in Malibu when folks first gathered to talk about the need to connect, through to 30 years later, the world's largest organization and conference for the folk music community, with 28,000 delegates from 35 countries attending last year. So a remarkable community story over those 30 years. One of the events that we launched last year in celebration of our 30th, but also as an indicator of the real shift in industry relationship in terms of partners and partner organizations and stepping out as a genre was a partnership and the initiation of a Grammy Week event to celebrate the folk music, folk album nominees last year. This event was held at Joe's Pub in New York City in concert with the 60th anniversary of the Recording Academy. Hosted by Rose Cousins. We were able to celebrate nominees from the folk category, but also others from the American Roots category who were in attendance. The International Folk Music Awards, last year we moved off-site in celebration of our 30th, and we had a capacity attendance at the Folly Theater, a historic theater in downtown Kansas City, hosted and with featured performances and awards. Obviously the award show again held last night, but last year did mark a special occasion in that it was in a beautiful theater and live streamed for the first time, a tradition that we will carry on year to year at this stage. In terms of the conference itself, I mentioned some of the numbers, but it is important to note that we have been tracking over the past 5 years now the demographics of our attendees in terms of genuinely understanding what industry were represented, what presenters in particular were attending, and the balance of all of the segments of our attendee list. There has been a misconception that Folk Alliance was a place that if you were coming, there were only house concert presenters. House concert presenters are an incredible part of the ecology of our organization and our community, but we've wanted to diligently track the reality of the wide range of presenters, and indeed to attract presenters at all levels and to increase the presenters from the larger festivals, concert series, and performing arts centers, and we'll continue to track that. Last year also marked the launch of our exchange program, and we, in particular, had a program that was held in Gothenburg for the Nordic countries. And this is a micro-conference designed to work with key partners to bring together folks within that region to have critical conversations related to the future of the folk music community and industry within that market. That is leading to, after 4 years of conversations, the formation of a Nordic Folk Alliance that is still in sort of the development and negotiation stage with Folk Alliance International, but marks the first time that internationally, with 4 countries involved, an international edition of Folk Alliance will come to fruition. Advocacy work throughout the year includes behind-the-scenes partnerships and collaborations with committees, national level committees. We are partners with folks including Americans for the Arts, National League of Orchestras, and others who together work to petition or advocate for particular bills or laws or on issues. That also included, for the first time, participation at Arts Advocacy Day on the Hill. Last year, we committed to the Key Change initiative, which is an international initiative that has set a goal that by 2022, there be 50-50 gender parity in festival and event programming in terms of artists on stage. We met that goal last year by their measure in terms of our official showcase artists, in terms of having 50-50 male and female representation on stage. So we're very proud of that. Proud seems like a strange word to use in that. It was long overdue. I want to state it was not hard to do at all. There are incredible women as artists throughout our community, and it's really a matter of making sure that lens is down in front of what we're doing every time. That commitment is extended this year, not just to our official showcase artists, but to our MCs and all of our panelists. That is our commitment this year. Last year, the focus of our community gathering was committing to a safe music community. This is a photo of the pledge that many people signed on to. There was training, facilitated training within the conference itself, and training that was provided for staff, for the board, and a conversation that needs to continue and not just be a moment in time, but something that we as a community and industry need to reflect on in terms of the standards, the norms, the laws, and the rights and respect of everyone within our community. Folk music, as rooted as it is in ideals, is not immune to the pervasive issues within society, and having a community, an event, and an industry that's free of harassment and discrimination is critical. It's a critical conversation that we need to continue every year. Our artist in residence last year was Henry Nam, who we partnered with UMKC and the KC Arts Institute for a project that related to music and sound theory as it related to an original composition of his. Finest Folk, this is our traveling roadshow, if you will. So at events including Americana Fest, South by Southwest, IBMA, the International Bluegrass Music Association, and other events, Folk Alliance is now presenting showcases. And we try to tailor those showcases to the event that we're at in terms of looking at some of the gaps in programming. And last year we had a 100% female focus to our Finest Folk programming at Americana Fest in Nashville. Our regions, Lisa mentioned and thanked our regional leaders. I would like to thank them and the extended boards, but also celebrate the growth of the regions and the regional conferences. These are obviously affiliated formally with Folk Alliance International, but it is really the regional areas where the relationships professional and personal, are nurtured to build touring networks, to build the teams and the relationships in order for artists to come export ready into an international event like this and have the experience, the connections, and the momentum to be moving into new national and international markets. Last year, we once again hosted, in partnership with three other organizations, an executive directors retreat with Paul, Barbara, and Jed from the IBMA, Blues Foundation, and Americana Music Association. This is a personal and professional gathering of the executive directors, really to have a more collaborative and continual conversation as executive directors, and it's been very fruitful for all of us and for our organizations, and has in fact led to some genuine and exciting partnerships this year. We were the recipient of 3 Philly Nonprofit Marketing Awards in Kansas City once again this past year, and really a testament to the communications crew and the work of the entire staff to really elevate the presence of Folklines International, not only within Kansas City, but in terms of all of the marketing materials and the campaigns that have been associated with communications over the past 2 years. The strategic plan, and I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge the recently retired board members who are in the audience and the entire board here. It is a distinct pleasure as executive director of this organization to work with such a collegial and collaborative board. In terms of my bosses, I have a lot of them. But I genuinely could not ask to be working with a more engaged group of professionals and people who not only love what they do and love this organization, but love what it is that we are all collectively trying to do. And their role is a governance role, but it shows through in all of the direction that particularly comes out of the strategic plan and the vision and goals of the organization. So it's not my job or the staff's job to come up with that. The board, as elected by you, the membership, are a collective brain trust for the community. And this year, this marked the introduction of a new strategic plan for the 2018 to 2021 period with an adjusted mission. This is based on the previous mission, but a consolidation of some of the language. So the new mission being to serve, strengthen, and engage the global folk music community through preservation, presentation, and promotion. And that then related to 4 items that would be the vision for the future during this strategic plan: to advocate for the folk music community, to have thoughtful, intentional growth, to be a respected organization within the music industry, and to continue producing high-profile, meaningful events. Obviously, there are a lot of action items out of that, but those are the 4 guiding markers out there in the snow for me to chase down with the staff. In your report, and I won't get into the financial details of this, but in the annual report that you have, you'll see an accounting of the total income and expenses. Again, we present this now in the report just so that there's a transparent view of the financial comings and goings of the organization. 5 years ago, we were just under $1 million, and at this stage, we're at $1.5 million in operating budget. That means we bring in $1.5 million and we spend $1.5 million. We are careful to do that and always produce a slight profit, which then goes into our reserve. The reserve is there so that we are able to do things like pay out in cash for the development of a new office this year rather than borrowing and incurring interest. So it's all about fiscal responsibility and being positioned to move forward the community and the organization by being mindful of our resources. These charts also just give you a sense. We decided this year in the annual report, rather than just report on last year to this year, that we would give you a span of the past 5 years since we started tracking this data more diligently. And that also relates to our fundraising growth. One of the key things that we've done is genuinely to engage you and the extended community in a deeper understanding of the charitable nature of Folk Alliance, and to actually engage in a respectful donor campaign to involve people in both matching funds and in restricted fund support and the development of scholarship programs and other areas of interest for donors and funders. The organization continues to grow both in membership and attendees. This is not growth for growth's sake. This is genuinely also about ensuring that a broader view of the industry and community is aware of Folk Alliance and also sees their place within Folk Alliance, and that we find meaningful ways to provide services and support that attract people not just to come to the conference, but through our year-round activities. Social media growth through our communications team and focus over the past 4 years has demonstrated and resulted in exceptional growth, and this has really proved to be, as we all know, in terms of a change in communication styles in society, but as an organization, it took us a little while to catch up, and we are fully engaged now and aligned with all of the communication vehicles that our community are active in. It's certainly too small to read on this slide, but within the annual report and online, we have a list of all of the donors from last fiscal year. So again, that's July 1st, 2017 through to June 31st, 2018. We obviously online now are tracking all of our current donors, but our profound thanks. It is with the support of the donors that we have a more diversified revenue stream and that we are not relying entirely on sales and sponsorship. And this again is a responsible step to look at the future of the organization and how we fund what we do. We did relocate our offices in Kansas City and have signed a 7-year lease with a new office space that we were very active in the development of. It's a special relationship with a developer who was building a new building and had a tax abatement incentive by engaging with a nonprofit, and they were looking rigorously for a nonprofit that would reflect their interests in terms of cultivating a new area of the city in terms of developing and trying to connect to communities, and we were the honored organization to go into partnership with them over the next 7 years in that space. And this is the opening day with Mayor Sly James in attendance. This was hosted by the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. That takes me to our staff. This is a photo of some of the core staff, but I want to express my deep thanks. I know that I get time at the podium and have lots of face time out in the community and at events, but none of this would happen without the incredible work, time, talent, and leadership, and I genuinely mean that, the leadership of the staff. There are times when I might think I know what I'm doing, but it is the staff that course corrects. And I deeply respect all of our staff. I do want to mention them by name. Many of them are here in the room, so just give a hand wave if you can. I think most of them are towards the back, but Jennifer Rowe, our Director of Operations. Alex Mallet, our Business Development Manager. Jared Rivers, our Membership and Technology Manager. Erica Noguera, our Communications Manager. Melissa Polka, our Social Media Coordinator. Leah Watts, our Special Projects and Executive Assistant. Forrest Beck, our Development Coordinator. We have a number of incredible interns that work with us on a paid internship, including Karina White, Katie Walker, Diane Hadrasky, Ian Sussman, Beth Kratch, who is our volunteer coordinator. Jim Schultz, who's probably still sleeping after his first night as the private showcase coordinator. Tressa Levasseur, our Canadian representative. Amy Tarian, our program coordinator. Sheena Keane could not be with us today. She's our international coordinator, representative based out of Ireland. Åke Lundström, who's here and has been our Nordic representative. And our newest incoming member, and with this I want to take a moment to thank and acknowledge our retiring communications manager, Erica Noguera, who has been an incredible addition to our team and has led us in elevating our communications and connecting us meaningfully with the language and engagement thoughts for genuine and deeper community conversations. So our profound thanks, Erica. And with that, I would like to welcome Kelly Doherty, who is our incoming communications manager. While I'm thanking folks and moving on from staff, and again, thank you staff, I'd like to acknowledge that this year at one of the regions we had a very special retirement, and I would like to send thanks on behalf of the staff and board of Folk Alliance International to Diane Tankel, who was one of the original members of Folk Alliance, but also the founder and longtime conference director of NERFA. This year also marked an important transition as the Folk DJ chart a year ago moved from the personal 20-year volunteer project to an ad hoc volunteer committee that took on the task of taking the Folk DJ chart and modernizing it, developing software around it to better track Folk DJ reporting, and to develop a website and a more dynamic way of viewing the results of that. And as of today, in an email that is going out, that ad hoc committee is transitioning the full responsibilities of that chart and reporting information to Folk Alliance International. But I want to take a moment to celebrate the incredible work over the past year led by Carrie Estrin with the support of Pete Damore, Mara Levine, Ken Nagelberg, and Al Canola. There was a moment there when that 20-year chart almost perished, and thank you, Carrie and team, for ensuring that that did not happen until we pulled up our socks and could come in to take on that responsibility. Thanks so much. 2019 conference. Here we are, Montreal, welcome, bienvenue. It's an exciting return to Canada. This is the Canadian edition in Montreal, Quebec. The theme this year, obviously the spirit of creativity, looking at why we do this, where these ideas come from. Yes, it is a business conference. Yes, it is a family reunion for all of us, but also a time to stop and reflect on things. And each year, thematically, we choose to focus in on something. And for this, you'll see throughout the programming, questions around why do we actually do this? And what is it that compels arts or informs artists and enables people to continue to do this and connect art with audience. The flip side of that is the expectation and some of the challenges that come with a life in this cultural world, and as artists traveling and being on stage. So the challenges associated with that, and whether that's anxiety, depression, addiction, and a conversation that we as a community need to have in terms of supporting, not just artists either. I mean, for all the folks that work tirelessly on their own as agents or managers or in sort of cottage industry level work, it's challenging, and it's important that we have an open conversation about that. We're using the hashtag #FolkLifeBalance, but genuinely, in all of these events, moderation and self-care as an executive director, as board members with their own professional careers, as a community of artists and industry doing this, that we take time for ourselves, that we literally try and balance things out in the conference. One of the reasons that we moved our official showcases a little earlier was to insert a 2-hour break, to actually stop our programming and have time for dinner, to go to the gym, to rest. Encourage you to drop by the quiet room. There's meditation, yoga, there's recovery sessions, to look at moderation of all things, including alcohol. I mean, what other career, I don't know many dentists and teachers that go into work with a drink in hand, but in our industry, I mean, more often than not, you are in an environment where alcohol is plentiful. And just to be mindful of that, and that there are personal choices we can make too, to just sort of take a long approach to our career here. Final slides here. I just want to celebrate one of the major focuses of the conference this year, and this comes out of, this is the 5th year of genuine outreach and effort to engage, involve, consult, and present Indigenous content throughout the conference program. But this year, in addition to our own efforts, we have the great honor of holding space for the world's first International Indigenous Music Summit, with artists and industry coming from around the world. This is under the leadership and facilitation of Shoshone Kish, and it is a remarkable event. That summit is for Indigenous artists and industry today, but you will see programming and a panel that will sort of convey some of the learnings and discussions from that. It's a really important step for us and for the community, and something that we hope to learn from and develop our programming from in the future. Speaking of which, this year our Artists in Residence project is a collaboration between Twin Flames and UNESCO in celebration of 2019 being named the International Year of Indigenous Languages. We had the great honor of presenting at UNESCO in Paris this past month, and it marks a significant shift for us in terms of our partnerships around the Artists in Residence project. That will be presented prior to Tanya Tagaq's keynote on Saturday. And for those who have not yet heard the news, 50 years ago in this very hotel, John and Yoko held their infamous Give Peace a Chance bed-in. Initially it was a bed-in for peace to gather media, politicians, and creative and thought leaders to discuss peace, but it led to the writing and recording of Give Peace a Chance in this very hotel. Saturday morning, 9:30, we are inviting all of you, whether you're an artist or not, to get in your own bed, or stay in your own bed, or get to your bed, and live stream your own version of Give Peace a Chance. We have people signed up around the world, not just here, to broadcast out at 9:30 a.m. exactly. So we encourage you to join in. And finally, next year, for those who have not yet heard, we are moving the conference not back to Kansas City quite yet, but to New Orleans, and moving to January 22nd to 26th. So a little earlier, because of Mardi Gras, it was a one-time, one-year opportunity to go in, so we seized that opportunity. It dovetails nicely with the cultural and linguistic story of Montreal, and the Acajuns and Cajun culture, but also the extended and dynamic multicultural reality of New Orleans as we explore identity through a theme of the story of people and place. So we are going to dig into lots of great, interesting, and challenging issues next year under that theme. So I'm going to finish off there. We have a very brief reel to introduce New Orleans to you, and then I will hand off to Michelle Conceição, who is here to, in her past role as chair of our research committee, to present some of the findings from our project this year.
Ready for that. Let's go. I already registered. Hi, you thought you were rid of me. You thought you were rid of me. It's been an exciting project. I'd say over the last 4+, maybe 5 years in the making to really undertake some research. When Angus joined us, we were very lucky to get him, we pledged to strive to be a more actively use data in the decisions that we make as an organization. And research is one part of that initiative. Here we go. We undertook, let's see, back one. There we go. So we've undertaken the first phase of a research study. That does not mean we've answered all the questions, okay? We've started to answer the first questions. Our first phase was really intended to self-reflect as an organization in the field. And we also really have taken this time to establish the processes, relationships and the methods that we need to have a strong base and to be able to be capable of undertaking research. And some of you may have experience in that, but that alone is a big part of the first initial work of research. We did not attempt to define the folk field. I always like to quote, someone will correct me if Scott got this from someone else, but I always like to quote Scott Alaric. We are at the best when we're talking about what folk is, and we are at the worst when we're talking about what it isn't. But we really set out to detangle and articulate some of our initial questions, challenges, and what the field is facing. And we intentionally included the community beyond our membership. So the hope was to get responses from people beyond our core membership, and we certainly have, which is great. The initial goals are really to encourage self-reflection and conversation and collaboration to get us all talking about these items so that we can charge forward and learn a lot more about our community. We went through a partner selection process in which we received proposals from several partners. We worked with an organization called Slover Lynette. One of the reasons we chose them as a partner was their extensive experience in arts-related audience research. And they've worked in all different fields, including classical music and museums, and so we felt that they would bring a unique perspective coming in and looking at folk. The great other thing is that provides a real a third-party perspective. They have an unbiased perspective, but still related to the arts. We undertook the two-step process for the first phase. The first phase was we did initial in-depth qualitative interviews with a select group of people, and then an online qualitative survey, which I hope, how many of you filled out the survey? Oh, great. We've got some more respondents in the room here. But we did receive great response to that survey and certainly have statistically significant results, which we'll share. That survey was sent to current members, past members, event attendees, and partner organizations who then shared it with their membership. The responses we received over 2,000 responses, which did generate, as I said, statistically significant data. What I mean by that is we do feel we had enough information to come to certain conclusions about groups within the data set, which is always what you look for in research. The spread was from across North America primarily, and that makes sense because that was our initial primary focus in terms of getting started in research. As you see this, you saw this map up earlier, which is the way our regions are organized. And the ratio really is quite similar to our membership makeup, so there was no major skews in the data there. I'm going to now, going forward in here, I'm going to fly through a lot of information very quickly, and this is just to say there will be a report that's issued in March with an executive summary that will have all this data in it. There's no way to, we're going to move very quickly, and so I won't speak to everything on these slides, but I certainly wanted to present to you. We have a rich wealth of data. To be honest with you, I've written these slides maybe 4 times trying to figure out how to summarize this for you as quickly as possible. But in general, we found a great spread in the main demographics of our responses. We did receive a higher response from artists. We also did find that, we had a wide range of demographics, but certainly most identifying as white from an ethnicity standpoint. We used the same roles in categorization as you'd find on your badges, consistent with the Folk Alliance database, so that we would be able to really look at actual data over time and add to our data set as we go. One thing we found is that in terms of pulling a few data points out, most roles revealed gender parity. However, in media, it was more male than female. We have raised questions in the board of whether that is consistent with other data outside of folk, and we will be looking into that further in terms of other research that has been done by other organizations, because we are aware of some other studies that exist, and we will be looking at that in our analysis for our executive summary. We found that the promoters were among the most educated and most likely to be Folk Alliance members among the different constituencies. And those in roles of artist or industry tended to be younger than the presenters, media, or associates, who are usually age 55 and over. But again, most balanced. So these differences were not huge differences. They were really slight differences. It's really a passionate pursuit. One thing that's cool about working with a third-party research firm is we get to see what they're surprised by. And certainly coming from the arts, they still would be familiar with how passionate the arts are. But time and again, the research firm was kind of blown away by how much the folk community sees this as central to their personal identity. That we are not just colleagues working together, but we really are living lives in which this is really a significant part of how we see ourselves being part of the folk community. So over a third of respondents consider folk to be a key part of their personal identity. 73% said they work mostly or entirely in folk music. Artists were more likely to personally identify with folk than those in other roles, and they were also, at the same time, most likely to say they work in multiple different genres as compared to the other roles. So we've had some rich discussion about that in the boardroom yesterday and with our research partner, and we will be delivering some more thoughts on why that might be as we deliver more results to you. We did confirm, so one thing we did, you do research in part, we have a lot of myths, right? We all have a lot of things we believe to be true about our community, and a major part of conducting research is to determine, is that really true about us or not? And also you will notice things incidentally. So at Folk Alliance, we've noticed incidentally, and I think Angus found this when he first came in, that most people didn't want to have just one role. Like when you're asked for your badge, I took my badge off. When you ask for your badge, what is your identity, and you're put in a category. I know that when Angus first joined, the database had to be changed for the registration system because people wanted to say they had 1, 2, or 3 roles, and that's not just incidental. We really found that in the study as well, that a lot of us are doing multiple things. We're wearing multiple hats. As Tressa said, I think yesterday, we're diversifying our platform, or I might not have gotten your words right, but really it's not just an anomaly that some of us are doing multiple things. A lot of people in our community are, and we'll be able to look further into that. The folk field generally feels similarly about the central qualities of folk. We feel it provides a means of connection, and that is both about connection to our past, connecting our past with our present, and connecting between people and community. One lovely thing about having done interviews is we have a lot of really meaningful quotes, and a lot of you also spent a lot of time giving more thoughts in the other field on the survey. So we really did get a wealth of personal information in addition to quantitative data. What is interesting, however, is there's a slight difference generationally in this attitude. So while we all agree on some of these things that are important, we found it was more often that the younger generation was really inspired, identifying with folk in order to connect with the past. That was a little different than what we expected to see. We sort of expected it to be the other way around, but it actually was the youth, the younger, and when I say younger, I'm saying the under 35s, were coming to folk in order to connect with the past, and we're engaged in that connection. Where the older age groups were more interested in connecting artists with audience, and it was more about people and networking and people connecting. So that was kind of an interesting thing. We want to look further into that as we can continue our research to more deeply understand it. Now I'm getting to the part where some of the things we've found have created more questions for us to answer. So we don't have the answers to these questions, but I'm presenting to you what some of our questions may be as we move forward. One thing we found was that we've talked a lot in the boardroom about aspiration versus reality. So what we aspire to be versus who we believe we are. And so we've got several data points on that we'll be sharing more with you in the future, but largely the folk community values inclusiveness and different perspectives and representation and diversity, but we're all well aware that we are not necessarily achieving our hopes for how diverse we may be or representation that is happening. We asked questions about how important do you think different elements or attributions could be for our community. We also asked then how you felt it was going, and really that question was phrased specifically with respect to the field that you interact with, and that could have been defined for yourselves in many different ways, whether it was with where you live or in the international community. But what we found, and this is a little, this is an interesting chart to look at. The gray bar there reflects sort of the value in how important you feel these different qualities are. Now recognizing, I want to point out, everyone felt, in terms of the numbers, how they read, everyone felt these things were important. So this was about asking people, when you're given a set of these qualities, what do you think are most important? And then how do you think we're doing? So if you were to look at this, you'd say, okay, we want to be welcoming to newcomers. 92% were saying that was a desirable quality, and 52% were saying that we were doing well on that. So the gap between these numbers really tells us how people are feeling we're doing on the things that they think are important. Certainly you can see that the larger the gap, maybe the more work we have to do, and that can inform our strategic planning. It can inform the programming and services that we provide, the membership, and that is the way we're looking at this right now. There's a lot more work to be done in terms of digging into exactly what all this data means, but given that we're all here in a room together, we wanted to share this with you. A few other findings, and if I can tell you, there's data behind all of these that are worth discussing. While people in the folk field do share a sense of values, we are not expressing a lot of clarity around our understanding of our audience. So what that means is, in a lot of the things I've shown you so far, when people answered survey results, their answers were, on a scale of 1 to 7, they were close to the 1s and 7s, enough to be really conclusive and understand, okay, this is a true trend. When we were asking questions about audience, a lot of those questions, the answers were more in the middle range, which either means, usually in research, either people don't care, they haven't really thought about that enough to have an opinion, or it means they're really not sure, and the research firm's contention is that we're really not sure. So there's a lot more to be done in terms of understanding our audiences, understanding the perspective. One of the questions that was particularly interesting was how important they felt a small venue, intimate venue experience was to the audience, and there were some differing opinions on how important it was versus to the artists versus others. So there's a lot more work to be done on understanding our audiences. There's also, We Unearthed, which I'm sure people might not be surprised about this in the room, real anxiety and concern around financial matters and economics and sustainability of our own careers across all of the role categories and sustainability and how attitudes about how confident we are about our economic situation. So there'll be more questions to ask about that. And then really it appears to be the Folk Fields perspective that Folk Alliance's primary role is to connect artists and industry. Now I have to say the primary goal of this study wasn't about Folk Alliance, it was about folk. And so there are some instances of learning things like this that are very important and driving what the board will decide in terms of how to inform what we do by the research. But yeah, the main goal is to really understand the needs of our community. So the next steps are really to look at around these 3 areas, diversity, audience, and economics. What are our opportunities to learn and prioritize our resources toward that learning and research? In March, there'll be an executive summary and a findings report. We'll be then socializing our findings from this research. We'll be considering how this research informs the strategic plan of programming and services. And we'll be prioritizing our next areas of study, which discussion has already been underway, which is great. We'll design the next stages of this research, and in particular identify if there are partners, university partners, funding partners, seeking real resources. Some of the research we're talking about, if we're talking about audience research and economic data, economic impact, and economic reality study, those are not, those are expensive studies to undertake. We do feel that they are very important, but we'll certainly be looking for partners and investment, donation, and the like in order to support that research. And that concludes the research portion of the AGM. I should thank the committee members who have worked very hard on this. We've had this is a committee in which we've needed specific expertise. Certainly if there are people involved in research in their careers, we hope you'll come forward to help us. But I'd like to thank Erin Benjamin, who's been instrumental in this process, Linda Fahey, who are 2 past board members who have joined the committee in order to help us do this initiative. Current board members on the committee, Amy Reitnauer and Gil Gastelum. And then the originators of this initiative really were Erica Wallum-Nichols and Kristen Thompson, and I'd like to thank Angus and the board for your leadership in all of this, because certainly research informs innovation.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, as we wrap up, I'm going to thank everyone for their time and attention. Are there any questions that anyone has out there for the board, for Angus? As Michelle has said, there's going to be an executive summary in March, so we don't want to do any more of a deep dive into the research project. But any questions? Well then, thank you for being here. I'm thrilled that you're joining us in Montreal for, as Angus said, the Canadian edition. And there's been lots of thank yous, but again, we could not be here if not for you. So thank you for being here. Enjoy the conference. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? Sensing no objection, go forth and folk.